recorded in sinfully sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. Avantpop Bookstore presents interviews. Joining us on this episode of Avantpop Bookstore Presents is Jarret Keene. Jarret Keene is an associate professor in the English department at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he teaches American literature and the graphic novel. He has written books, a travel guide, a rock star biography on the band The Killers, poetry collections, and edited short fiction anthologies such as Las Vegas Noir and Dead Neon Tales of Near Future Las Vegas. He is the series editor of Las Vegas Writes, an annual literary anthology produced by Nevada Humanities and Huntington Press. This book showcases the best writers by Las Vegas artists. Join us now, Jarret Keene. Well, all right, Jarret, good to have you here, dude.
Man, it's a pleasure. This is my favorite store.
Oh, well, we love hearing that, dude. You're right now my favorite sci-fi writer.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great to hear.
I mean, I'm excited. All day long I've been pumping the book up. Like, we're gonna have it here soon. After I would tell everybody about it, and then they'd be like, well, where is it? I'm like, well, we're going to have it soon. I'm like, dude, you can't do that to me. But yeah.
September 12th.
September 12th.
Is the official release date.
Yeah.
It should be arriving before that.
Yeah. Your book review comes out the 1st of September. So,
oh, excellent.
The one I did, at least. I had a good time doing that, too. That was
oh,
fun.
Good. It's good to hear.
Heck yeah. No, I mean, it's a fun book. I want to break it down, take it back to, where are you from, Jarret?
I'm originally from Tampa, Florida, death metal capital of the world.
Interesting.
Strip club capital of the world.
Yeah.
I think JFK's assassination was roughly plotted there. You know, it's an evil place, and I was at home there for many years.
What brought you down to Vegas?
Job opportunities. You know, my wife and I arrived here in 2001. She got a job teaching at the school here at the university, and I got a gig writing for the alternative weekly Las Vegas City Life, which is something you may recall, a publication from back in the day.
Yeah.
And so just took it from there. You know, I have to say, though, I did not get a job until I was 27 years old, because I pursued, what would I call it, a higher education. I was a grad student for many years in my 20s until they finally had enough of me and conferred a Ph.D. in English. So I was able to get out of Florida with a doctorate.
Hell yeah. And, so you were the lifelong student, huh?
Yes, until I arrived in Las Vegas, and then I became a student all over again of this wild location, which never ceases to amaze, to fascinate.
Yeah, definitely. So, your book that we'll be talking about is dedicated to Kirby.
Jack Kirby, yeah. My dad is a big comics fan, and turned me on to the Fantastic Four, X-Men, all these comics from the 60s that were created by Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
And he's just the greatest visual storyteller ever. I mean, I put him above everyone else. Yeah. And I love Kirby for his kinetic action. You know, you never read a Jack Kirby comic and say, well, that was boring.
Yeah. Yeah, well, with those Fantastic Four, right, that was like the first real intellectual comic that came out. You finally got the okay to do something that was not just, actions, it's got to be a little more.
Oh no, there's depth there, and I don't want to make Jack Kirby sound like a punch happy superhero crazed crass commercialist, but he brought artistry and intellect to that genre of superheroes, and so that was my training. That's how I learned to read. That's how I learned to understand stories, and it's because of his sophistication and his energy as a storyteller. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted to bring, onto the page with Hammer of the Dogs.
Yeah. Now, how's your comic book collection? Did you ever have to sell it, or did you still hold on to it?
I've never sold a single comic. I've never traded. Bastard. I've got long boxes and long boxes of comics. I could basically launch a comic shop right now if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to part. I want to hoard and covet, and
Now, do you get how many sons do you have?
I have two. There's two boys, 17 and 15.
Yeah, you get them into comics like your dad got you into them?
Well, they were hooked on comics until they became teenagers, and now they've moved in a more, video game direction.
Yeah.
But, they grew up reading Richie Rich, Casper the Friendly Ghost, all the classics, Little Lulu, Nancy, things like that. And that's how they learned to read, really.
Yeah.
And, so it was fun to kind of watch their love of comics develop, over the years. And they'll still, get down with like a Frank Miller comic, or, Alan Moore's Watchmen or something like that. Yeah. But for the most part, they're just they're gamers.
Yeah, that'll happen with that generation for sure. Now, comic books were a love, but you're also a poet too. So yes. I want to talk about that and get your books in here.
Yes.
How do we do that? But yeah, how did you?
Poetry was like the way into learning, for me, the technique, the craft of writing. I started small, and I wrote little poems about comic books, little poems about Godzilla, Alfred E. Newman, poems about things that people weren't, really interested in at the time. This is like the 90s.
Yeah.
Early, mid to, I guess, through the 90s. Pop culture verse wasn't really a thing. There's maybe 2 or 3 other poets doing it at the time. Today there's, dozens.
Yeah.
But I really felt like I was tapping into something new, and I sent a batch of, must have been 50 poems, to a publisher in San Francisco called Manic D Press, and they wrote me back and said, "Hey, we love this. We love these poems. Let's assemble something. Let's put together a book." And then my Manic D, my publisher, did me a solid and somehow got the rights to a piece of Jack Kirby art, which appears on the cover of my first poetry collection called Monster Fashion. And that was a huge honor, and that kind of it was also an omen. Like, this is what I need to be doing. Like, writing is fun, it's rewarding, and I get to have images of Jack Kirby drawn characters on my books. Let's do this. So,
yeah, it's definitely inspirational.
So for me, poems were a way to kind of practice everything, like voice, style, even narrative poems. They were fun to it was fun to sit down and write a poem that told a story. And so it was like working in miniature in many ways.
Yeah.
And but I was also developing my voice as a short story writer. I would write what we now call creative nonfiction. So I was always writing creative stuff. I had just never attempted a really long piece, long narrative piece like a novel.
Yeah.
So that only happened very recently.
So you went from poetry to a biography, to writing a biography?
I did write a biography of a Las Vegas band that I met when I first arrived in Las Vegas in 2001. That band, that group of kids, ended up becoming the Killers.
So, oh, shit.
Yes, so I watched them develop, and I watched them at rehearsals, and it was just inspiring to see these young people take something that just chords, lyrics, and create something that would go on to become platinum selling. It was really an honor to watch them develop that way and become super successful. And those songs, especially those first songs that appear on their first record, you can't beat them. Mr. Brightside, what a tune. And to see that performed like in Cafe Roma, which is an old coffee house on Maryland Parkway, and then watch it become an international hit was really inspiring. So, but yeah, the thing with writing the biography of the rock band was that I was also at the time, as I said, writing for Las Vegas City Life. I was the music critic or music editor there. It was just a real opportunity to see the artistic side of Las Vegas right away. Like as soon as I got to town, I was in clubs, I was at shows, I was at concerts, and I just learned the ropes. They threw me in the deep end of the pool with that newspaper, and I came out all right. I came out with a book, and I was a music critic for many years, for I guess roughly 15 or 16 years, which is pretty amazing.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm jealous. That's what, writing for Dope magazine,
Mm-hmm.
I was always trying to get in culture and music, especially because, I just, like yourself, I just loved music in all shapes and form. And, so I'd occasionally get an article in, but to actually be focused on it and being the music critic, that's pretty awesome.
No, I didn't get paid a lot.
Well, none of us ever do when it comes to writing. I think the 60s and the 70s was probably the only time, maybe some in the 80s when there was lots of cocaine money flowing around.
Yes.
But, anymore it's just pennies.
As my friend Seth Barkin used to say, becoming a music critic, it's like a position you work your way down to. It's not something you really want. It's not something you really ascend to. It's something that you kind of find yourself doing. So.
Yeah, even a little bit of money. Now I write about cannabis for cannabis. That's how I get paid.
Right.
The music stuff, I get some backstage passes.
Yeah, there's cool swag, and sometimes you get free tickets to a show, and that's worth everything.
But yeah, especially if you just love seeing bands and the nuances of how they perform, and it's just each one's different, and it's the people that come. There's just so much about a show that's exciting to write about.
Yeah, and the underground shows in Vegas are what really tickle my fancy, and I love places like Red Dwarf, which always have cool underground bands that I've never heard of come to town. It's just fun to pop in there and catch a really interesting show.
Yeah, Red Dwarf's one of our favorites for sure. And there's still some great local punk bands in this town. Bands that overall, Crimson Riot, they've really been knocking it out of the park here locally and all over across the board. They're probably one of the most popular ones I think right now.
Awesome.
That's always great to be able to do that. Now, so poetry, and then how'd you get the job for the university?
There was a position opening, a teaching faculty position, and I applied, and that launched another phase of my career. You got to remember that I was a grad student, got my Ph.D., then ended up in Las Vegas writing about underground rock clubs, and that phase of my career isn't even all of it. So I had a friend at the magazine City Life who said, "Jarret, we can make twice as much money writing employee newsletters for the casino corporation." And I was like, "Really?" So he got the job first, and he said, "You got to come over. We got benefits. They feed us free meals in the employee dining room. You got to try this out." So I did, and I ended up getting hired to write the employee newsletters for MGM Resorts for most of their properties, MGM Grand, Excalibur, Luxor, Bellagio, etc., Mandalay Bay. And so I did that from roughly 2005 to 2010. I was a casino propagandist, and it was really fun. I got to spotlight and write stories about sous chefs and Cirque du Soleil acrobats, and guest room attendants, and lifeguards, and
so basically the magazine for the
employees.
Yeah,
it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was celebrating the working class, the union employees.
Right. Heck yeah.
So I enjoyed that for a long time. But as most things, it all goes online.
Yeah.
Eventually, and so I realized I was going to have to make the jump out of there. And I thought, why not go back to teaching, which is something I always enjoyed. Even when I was, like a freshman comp instructor as a grad student, I really enjoyed teaching. Yeah. And so it was fun to get back into it at UNLV. And, of course, it's a different audience. I went from writing, poems to writing, music criticism to writing corporate internal propaganda, and then, when you end up at the university, then it's, you can go two paths: academic writing, literary criticism as an English major or as an English professor, or you can be creative and write novels and nonfiction works and things like that. So I went in a creative direction with Hammer of the Dogs.
Yeah. Your class now, you're literature teacher with an emphasis on graphic novels, or is that with walk us through what one of your classes are like.
Well, but what I essentially do is explain where comics come from, which is, they precede World War II, but it wasn't until that war that so much money was invested in the medium. In other words, comics became something that the U.S. military used to, get the young soldiers for them to bide their time. Cigarettes, give them some cigarettes, give them some chocolate, give them some comics, because they're being in the military is like, well, a lot of jobs. You're just sitting around waiting for something waiting to be called to action. And so it was during World War II that comics really kind of became their own thing. They became more than just children's pastimes. They became something that adults consumed en masse. And then after the World War II was over, you got the baby boom. Kids want to read, bright, garish stories. And comics supplied that, so for me, it's about explaining where comics come from, which is, like the pulp, Stock Savage, Shadow, all that stuff. And then explain, how that investment that the federal government made into comics is, distributing them all over the world to GIs. So I talk about it from a historical perspective initially, but we get into all the other stuff like underground comics of the 60s, the direct market that are the specialty comic shops that started popping up in the late 70s, early 80s. And then I bring them up all the way to, the current MCU phenomenon, DCU, whatever else.
You talk about, wasn't there a ban on comics here in the States?
Oh, yeah, that was a juvenile delinquency scare, Frederick Wortham's Seduction of the Innocent, the book that was written by a social scientist who believed that there was a direct connection between teenagers behaving badly and, always having a copy of Batman and Robin in their back pocket.
Yeah.
So he put a lot of the blame of delinquency on the doorstep of these violent comics that were certainly existed during the 50s. But, like everything else, it was a scare, but it worked. And so the comics industry panicked and began to self-censor, to self-regulate, which is why you began seeing in the 50s that little stamp in the corner of the comic, approved by the Comics Code Authority. Okay, it was just a consortium of comics publishers that were, banding together to make sure that you couldn't depict things like, the undead or murder or whatever else. And so that kind of had an impact on comics. They became much more, I don't want to say juvenile, but it gave comics very few, it limited the creator's options. So that partly explains why superheroes were such a big deal in the 60s. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, they had to find a way around this code to still make comics interesting enough that kids wanted to read them. And the recipe they found was, of course, Fantastic Four, the Avengers, X-Men.
Now, was William Marlston part of the banning because of Wonder Woman?
Well,
I mean, frame of it, but
Wortham points out that Wonder Woman comics have some BDSM, lesbian imagery or whatever, and it certainly did. But I mean, you've kind of had to be in the know,
as a kid, you're not picking that shit.
I read those comics that were singled out when I was a kid, and I didn't notice anything. It was just Wonder Woman was tied up.
Yeah, of course.
People got tied up all the time in the pulps, whatever.
Yeah.
Tie him to a railroad track, whatever. Wait for the train. Big deal. It didn't. So it was kind of a weird way of looking at comics, trying to identify how they are kinky or how they promote whatever bondage or something. But that was. There was a lot of changes happening in society, in American culture at that time. So you can understand not everyone knew how to deal with it or how to process it. So as a result, comics kind of, took the brunt of the censorship. Of
It
that
seems
time.
like a lot of stuff that was created for young adults. Pinball, that whole fact that, so if they could find a way to say it's corrupting, then they'll try and ban it.
Yeah. I mean, they've tried it with video games.
And music.
Everything else.
Yeah, it's just the latest politician trying to, find that Bible Belt ticket.
Yeah.
And
although I think they're right about TikTok. TikTok sucks, but I mean that's just my opinion.
I can't do much social no matter what it is. They started getting me depressed.
I think that's the idea. But I don't know. I might be wrong.
But now you got to have it for just business stuff. I mean, it's which is basically what we use it for.
Got to create your brand.
Which is so interesting. Talk about propaganda.
Yeah, we're all propagandists now.
Trying to be a better one.
No, artists have always had to be be cognizant of the market and their brand, so to speak, and it's just part of the beast.
Yeah. Now with some of the strangest comics, and I'm sure you've seen a lot more than I have, but the Zap comics out of San Francisco, with R. Crumb and all those
Wild.
Yeah.
Spain Rodriguez.
Clayton.
S. Clay Wilson.
Yeah, S. Clay Wilson. Yeah.
Stuff was wild.
It's just, that was, just the random chaotic vibe that they were going for, I guess. The psychedelic, aspect of it.
Yeah. They were inspired. I mean, they had tabs of acid. They had lots of time.
Tabs of acid and free love. That'll produce it.
They weren't. They were not gainfully employed. So so I mean, it was a movement. It was a thing. And what's always amazing to me is how those comics really had no proper distribution. They were just made available through head shops. Places that sold weed accessories, bombs and whatnot, and yet it had just an incredible cultural impact. And it impacted Marvel and DC. I mean, they experimented with that kind of comic book, and you can see the influence in things as innocuous as Howard the Duck, or which could have easily been a Zap comic.
Forbidden Fruit. Totally.
Oh yeah, and the whole the erotic aspect of the counterculture was undeniable. I think even Conan the Barbarian and Red Sonja, those wouldn't have been possible without the hippies, and their choice of reading material. Fantasy.
Well, speaking of fantasy, were you a big sci-fi guy?
I was. I was mostly limited to comics, and nothing to me. Nothing was better than like one of those Marvel Treasury oversized editions of Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars, Star Trek. I love those big Treasury editions. But for me, it was the movies and the VHS tapes of the 80s. I'd never really read. I mean, I read through Dune. I read pieces of it as a teenager, but I didn't really get it until I was in college. So everything I absorbed was very visual as a teenager, and you can probably sense that when you read through Hammer of the Dogs. It's
visual analog pop culture
Yes.
references.
I wanted it to read like a prose version of a sci-fi graphic novel, or like an 80s, fantasy movie, because those are how I learned story structure and dialogue and setting and all that stuff.
I started poetry, and then I didn't felt that I had the brain for books, so I went to screenplays. And when I was reading Hammer of the Dogs, it felt cinematic.
Yeah.
Like I was just blown away, like not shocked, but just like, holy shit, like this is really like visual and action packed, and the way you said it, it was quite, that's why I said in my review, it's like, get the book now and read it so you can, when the movie comes out, you can say the book was better.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see this book adapted, but I want it to be its own thing. Like I actually did not set out to write something that would be easily adapted into a screenplay. I wanted to write a visual prose novel. I wanted this to be my attempt at like distilling those aspects of all that visual culture into a story that you had to read. And I mean, it has a great cover, of course, by Claudio Bergaman, who's the current Judas Priest cover artist. And so I just wanted everything to be connected to that stuff that I love from the 80s, like heavy metal, the stuff that people believe was corrupting the youth of the 80s. Wasp, Twisted Sister, all those controversial bands.
I had an aunt who said Kiss meant kids in Satan's
service.
Yeah.
I was disappointed to learn that wasn't what it stood for. And the way that culture in the 80s was viewed as dangerous, pop culture, we've lost a lot of that today. And there's many reasons for that, but I wanted to go back to those days of, have you seen Red Dawn? That movie's crazy. It's got the Wolverines, Conan the Barbarian, these were very violent, very strange, very epic, works, visual, works. And I wanted to create something in that vein, in that tradition, and bring sci-fi fantasy back to what works, because today it's a little CGI, heavy, and it just doesn't have the same power that it had when I was a kid.
And this has power, and you have some open-ended situations too that
morally.
That I was just like shit, and what made it great is it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to come back and close out that chapter. It just leaves it like that shit happened.
And they can't go back. You can't fix it, and nothing's going to make it right.
Your main character, female.
Yes.
What was the inspiration?
Well, I kind of pushed right against the cliche of it. Every piece of pop culture today is like, what's the cliche? A strong, independent woman or whatever, badass. And so I was like, that's stupid. But I'm going to go back to Ripley from Aliens. I'm going to go back to Sarah Connor from Terminator. I'm going to go back to those heroines from the 80s that were the true the sci-fi tradition is right there. And I wanted to create my own version of that with Lash, and of course unless you've seen those movies or know those characters, it's probably, maybe they think this is more like Katniss Everdeen from Hunger Games, but that was not in my.
Right. Really I got from that late 80s the whole Riot Girl movement.
Yes.
Just the kick-ass, but still got a lot of issues, just fighting through it
and flawed,
exactly,
and vulnerable, and not all right, but trying their best. And that's certainly the case with Ripley and Sarah Connor and the others. I wanted to pay tribute to that with this, but also create a new character that people hadn't seen before.
Lash stands on her own for sure. And the fact that you tied in a little romance that I didn't even include that in my review, because I'm gonna leave that out. Just that's a surprise for those that, romance, I don't know, love story. What the hell?
I love the romance aspects of those 80s films, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, The Goonies. There's always this little.
It's a driving force.
Yeah, there's always this little love story that's percolating in the background, and I wanted that to be. A part of, or essential part of Hammer of the Dogs, but I didn't want it to be something where Lash has to redefine herself in order to satisfy the whims of some dude. I wanted this to be they were both going to have to change in order for them to find love or romance. I didn't want them to expect one person to get the edge over the other. They had to be equal.
Yeah, well, and everybody's got a little protagonist, a little antagonist
Yes.
in their character, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. You know, it's more human. Even with the really bad people in the book, you know,
Yes.
you've got some aspects like, oh, all right, they're not that fucked up. Oh no, they're fucked up.
But as messed up as they are, I really was, and I know you can feel this because we've spoken about it previously. Is that I wanted to offer a bright darkness.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a heavy, aggressive, sensational novel. But I also wanted there to be, I wanted to end like the ending of Top Gun, where you pump your fist in the air and you're like, yeah, or the ending of Conan the Barbarian, where you've been through hell, but it's a happy ending. It's a positive conclusion, and you just want to read the next chapter, the next.
Well, I think you're bringing up Red Dawn.
Yeah.
It's really 'cause now after you said that, I was like, oh shit, because it's a lot of like, what's behind that hill?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when we get there? Who are we fighting against?
It's
how?
a real bittersweet ending too.
Yeah.
That they succeeded in their mission, they've triumphed, but at a huge cost.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to convey here with Hammer of the Dogs.
Yeah. I think you did it. I think you definitely did.
Well, thanks. I don't want it's a dystopian adventure, but and I don't want to, no spoilers, but it's not something that's going to bum you out or make you feel sad or depressed. It's just a story that has a lot of twists and turns. And
when I was describing it earlier today, I said it's a book that pulls you in, and halfway through you cannot let go of it. Like it's just I was up till 5 a.m. one day.
Oh wow!
Just powering, like I couldn't.
Oh,
I couldn't put it down, and that's very seldom. I think Al Jorgensen's Ministry biography was the only other book that I was.
That's a great book.
I was reading by. Yeah, that was a great book.
I love how he used to torment the record producers. That always cracks me up.
He tormented so many people. He doesn't even remember it.
But the producers had it coming.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, but that and that says a lot. I got a pile of books next to my bed that I go to and like, all right, let's crack this next one, and this one, I'm not trying to blow smoke, but it was fucking awesome.
That's great. I'm really happy to hear that, and I just hope it finds an audience, because I'd love to come back to the character and do at least another book, maybe two more.
I was thinking that when I was coming to the last couple of chapters, I was like, man, there's got to be a continued something going more, because you got a lot of avenues now.
Yeah, I want to put Lash in orbit. I want to put her in outer space.
Nice.
Put her on Mars. Have her clean that place up.
Yeah.
Vegas is just the start.
If you can clean up Vegas, you can clean up anywhere.
So I'd love to do something with it. Have interstellar drones and things. Oh, I guess I haven't even said the word drone yet. Lash is a drone assassin.
Yeah.
And
small drones, or
yes.
I was bringing up that, and they're like, oh, like a bomb in cities. I was like, well, no, it's more like the personal
the line
drones.
of sight, of sight UAVs, and where that came from is very interesting. When I was working in the casinos, they had conventions all the time, but the weirdest and most disturbing conventions were the drone tech conventions. And so I'd sneak into these gatherings and look at all the latest hardware and weaponry. And it was a madhouse. It was a free-for-all. You'd see foreign dignitaries there perusing the catalog of, well, not just catalog, there were demos there. They weren't shooting guns, of course, or anything like that, but you could see all the tech there that you ever wanted for it, in order to pacify a country or overthrow a government or whatever. It was really troubling to witness.
I'm glad you brought that up, because your knowledge of drones was insane. Like I was like, all right, he's got to be a hobbyist, because your technical skill at describing and not only what they do, but what they look like, and just all the bits and pieces. I was like, all right, well, you must fly drones for a hobby. But
I was a member of the organization that basically runs these conventions. So I went to 4 or 5 of them in Las Vegas. And it's so funny, because all this tech is really nearly 10 years old, but it sounds, when you read it, it's like it's near future. Yeah. It's like it's not even here. But no, this tech is actually outdated. and it's so aggressive and inhuman.
Yeah.
And I really see that as kind of like the problem that we're going to face, which is, if you consider the AI situation, you add the drone and drone tech and drone weaponry, and it's going to create some serious challenges.
Well, and back to the 80s movies. I mean, I remember those, like that was the police force, drones flying around and the sci-fi is chasing people down and shooting at them. And
Skynet and the Terminator.
Yeah.
And so, I do think that the drone industry has done a good job of tricking people into thinking that drones can be used mostly for innocuous, helpful reasons. You see it in YouTube, like the influencers have their drones and they take their little videos. You're like, oh, they got their drone. But all of this is really for, military purposes.
Yeah.
And if you think about the internet and its military origins, if you think about Nevada and its military origins, if you think about Las Vegas and its military origins, this is the novel that had to be written. This felt like long overdue. Like somebody needed to write this book, this story, this kind of character, because it all seems very plausible and within the realm of immediate possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, even all the way up to the prof.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind that character? How'd you come up with? I mean, that was the unique one that I thought just was like sweet, fit right into it all perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole like Professor X thing, but what if he's using these students for evil instead of good? Like in the X-Men, Jack Kirby had it set up so that Professor X was training these mutants to be of service to mankind, to protect humanity from, the bad mutants out there. So I wanted to flip that around a little bit and see, what if, in fact, the professor is someone who's using these students for evil, for military reasons, in a kind of Ender's Game situation. So really, Prof is kind of a blending of X-Men with Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game, which has that reveal at the end where you realize the kids aren't just playing games. They're not just in the danger room. They're out there causing real pain and agony and havoc. And so that was the idea, the impetus there was kind of a pastiche, a merging of different things that I enjoyed as a kid.
Yeah. Then how about your gas huffers?
The penitents.
Yeah. I just thought that's hilarious.
Well, it's that thing where I wanted them to be zombies, but to write about zombies today it's a little ridiculous. So I thought, what if there's something worse than zombies? And what if they're, a cult of gas-huffing maniacs who have access to a nuclear bomb? I thought that was something very frightening to contemplate. And and I wanted to make it even wilder, which is what if Lash's dad got caught up in this, and that's why he's been missing all this time. So to me, that was like the kind of the perfect scenario. And I didn't want the penitents to be redeemable in any way. I wanted them to be absolutely just lethal.
Yeah.
And they were out to destroy anything in their path. And that to me was so frightening to contemplate. I was like, I have to work this in somehow. Yeah. No zombies will make these people who are dead set on annihilation. Yeah. And like most cults, most cults are self-destructive.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get into like explaining the cult or all that stuff. I just wanted to,
Yeah, I kept thinking about the side story. I'm like, oh, this is another whole. I want to find out more about
I've got it.
Guys.
I mean, I know what the story is, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to take that time. I wanted to the story to move forward. Yeah. But the penitents are. That's when I really felt my skin tingle and my, I just felt I was scared writing those moments, and especially that shootout in the cave. Where Lash is trying to rescue her dad from the penitents. That to me was
it's an intense scene.
It was frightening to imagine and then write down.
Yeah. So. What's your process with writing?
Oh well, for me it's lots of loud rock and roll.
Okay.
Well, in this case, it was lots of
Metal.
Lots of metal, a lot of Slayer, a lot of Judas Priest at full volume, and just kind of get into that zone where you can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And then I wrote this straight through like a dream.
You're kidding.
No, I revised.
Right, of
but
course.
The first draft was, like in a dream state. Like this is the '80s movie that I have to make, and so I wrote it in two big chunks, two sittings, you might say, and then the rest of the time I just kind of tinkered with it,
Polished. Yeah.
and
That's impressive.
fixed the plot holes. Yeah, if you break it into chunks, I found that, and I kind of knew that, like instinctually, I was like, I bet if I just break this off into 3, maybe 4 chunks, I can probably do this, within a year. And I did it, and that's not to say there was there were agonizing revisions. What am I going to do with this piece? Wait a minute, didn't I?
Always is.
Wait, I mentioned this back here, and I was but if you notice at the end, I bring everything back, like the Atomic Annie, the Mustang horse, the their giant earth-moving equipment, Mega Blade. I've had to put it all in there and say, let's do this. Let's bring it all back so that it wasn't just extraneously mentioned back there.
That's great. I love that. And that's the cinematic aspect of it that I got from it.
Yes.
How it just all pulled back in and tied and.
Forge, the biker chief, I wanted to bring him back.
I was wondering when that was going to show back up.
I knew he would come back. I wasn't sure where, but then as I'm writing the story, I was right here. This is what.
There was a couple of parts where I'm like, okay, is that going to come back? And when it didn't, I went, fuck yeah. That's good. That's good that it didn't come back. Leave that just that oh shit moments and plot things that happen that you don't have to define.
Right.
Which I thought was great.
I love that part of it, even if the revisions, as far as making the sentences shine, was a little agonizing. That's not my favorite part. I like the result. I just don't like the process of.
Writing's painful.
Yeah, polishing those sentences. It's not.
Well, you do a great job of lots of description, and also short and sweet.
Yeah.
It's like bullet points. It's like building the gun and then boom, 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 and then build the gun and it's like I think it reads really well.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, I tried to make it as punchy, as unputdownable as I could, because we've all read those books where it's going really well, and then there's that part where it's like, the slog sets in, and you're like, somebody should have told the author we don't need all this. And so I just wanted to take out the boring parts. It's one of Elmore Leonard's rules of writing. I just write the parts that the reader wants to enjoy, and so I did approach this novel with that in mind. Try to take out the boring parts.
Yeah, I try and I tell writers that ask, it's hard getting started. I say, write it all, just put it out, and then come back and just edit and just take it down. Because once you get that flow going, you don't want to stop or think, well, should I? And then you get caught, and it's like a net. You don't get further.
Well, I have to say, the original length of this book was 85,000 words, and what ended up getting published is 70,000. So I cut 15,000 words, and I don't regret it. I would never put them back in.
Yeah.
In fact, I could probably have taken another 5K out of it, but I didn't want it to be too, thin. I wanted it to be. To have an impact.
Girth.
Yeah. I want it to be solid.
Yeah.
Not a novella, like a real 200-page novel.
Well, now I know we're going to talk about this here coming up on the panel, but how are you addressing the AI writing in school now at the university?
Well, I do have some software that detects AI in my student papers, but I'm hoping I don't have to use it. But I don't know. I've experimented with AI in terms of like writing like some catalog notes or something like that, and I find I might be doing it wrong, but a lot of it's not useful. Like the what the AI spits out tends to be repetitive and
that's
a little off.
Yeah, I've used it a few times with my book reviews because I don't read a book a month. I'm not a fast enough reader, right. So I have to go back on books that I really loved. So I'll have chat do like a quick to make sure I haven't forgotten anything that's key. Nothing like a book review and you forgot the main character or something because your mind's like, oh, these were all my favorite parts. And yeah, the same thing, repetitive, and just no soul.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
like with some lecture notes, I tried to do like an introduction for an author like Mark Twain or something like that, and what it spit out was really unusable. But I mean, it does put stuff on the page, so you can like manipulate it, I guess,
Right.
and pare it down or whatever. But honestly, I just I trust myself more than I trust Wikipedia or whatever it's scraping from.
I was stoked. I'm like, oh shit, I'm a much better writer. I felt like it gave me props.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, you guys suck.
That's a good way of looking at it. That's a good way of looking at it. But so I imagine if a student, we're talking about this moment in 2023, if a student were to submit a AI-generated paper, I feel confident I would spot it. I'd be like, no, this is not going to work. And then I have this program that I could use also. But I don't know. I just I think that it will get smarter and it will get trickier. And I think there's still I think today AI is being used by media companies to kind of manipulate our emotions, our feelings, our ideas about life, and I think that's unfortunate because AI can be used like anything else. It's a tool. It can be used for evil, and people are going to use it for evil if they can. And I think AI was used in the most recent what do you call these, election cycles and whatnot, and I think it was used during COVID to be divisive, and I think probably QAnon is probably AI generated
point,
evil.
It seems like it, because here it's all cut and paste from every conspiracy out
right?
there.
I mean,
it reminded me when I first started reading the stuff of QAnon was Robert Anton Wilson. I was like, are you guys just stealing Robert's stuff? And he was fictional using, or using real stuff, and
so I think it's and we've all read those or seen those mainstream segments, like why are we talking about this? This is ridiculous, and the only explanation has to be that the AI said that they're supposed to talk about this stuff. So to me, it's like a weapon, a military weapon, and I don't think people understand that, or they're too content with the with the convenience of everything. So all this technology, it offers convenience, but it also hollows you out, makes you angry, makes you hate your neighbor. He's got a sign in his yard about this, and I don't like that, and so I'm going to hate this person. It's totally ridiculous.
It's very styrofoam.
Yeah.
Just there but not, and that's how I see it. With it, and that's why I tell writers too. It's you develop your style that's yours when you write, and just keep writing and doing it, and so you find what you like, and that's how you develop your style. You don't have to write like Hemingway. He had his style.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of AI is going to be doing. It's just pulling styles and trying to merge it all, but then you just lose it all.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but I think it's like anything else. Like even if AI became dominant in terms of entertainment, I still think there will be those who seek out organic, human created, true and legitimate storytelling.
And not everyone wants to go to a stadium show.
Yes, it's the same.
They want the little
I want the
bar
Red
show.
Dwarf experience.
Exactly.
I don't care about Allegiant Stadium. I just want
I don't need to be with the masses.
No.
Watching the little screen.
No, it's not. It's a lot of people think that's fun, but it's not for everyone. There's people who crave other things, other joys, other pleasures.
Well, speaking of military in Las Vegas and things people can't understand, you've been keeping up with the whole UAP UFO situation that's been going down.
I mean, I read the headlines. Yeah, I mean, Bob Lazar and all that I've been reading about for years, and I've always found that to be deeply fascinating.
Yeah.
And I believe I believe all that stuff. I believe that the aliens are here or whatever. Is that crazy to say? But
not anymore. I mean, I think it's crazy not to realize it. Like now, I think it's just denial for people. I'm like, come on, if you haven't realized it now, then you never will. It's like having faith in religion. It's like you won't take any other opinion because that's your faith.
Yes,
you're stuck.
Yes,
and I think that's what's happening to a lot of people.
So I think that I mean, again, all these things you have to wonder why are these stories happening? Who's generating these stories, and what's the point of it? What's the motive here? What's the idea governing this? But so I'm suspicious on that end. But of course, I believe that the tech is there and always has been.
Yeah.
And but I'm the kid who grew up reading about Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot, and I believed all spontaneous combustion. I believed all that stuff. And I never really stopped believing. There seemed to be too much corroboration on a lot of that. So
my favorite Robert Anton Wilson quotes is, "I don't believe in anything, but I have many suspicions."
Yes. Yeah, I guess that's a better word. I suspect that these things are.
Although aliens and UFOs, I studied under Zachariah Sitchin for a bit. I was a big into that whole thing in the mid '90s. I mean, from day one, In Search Of. I was watching In Search Of as a kid. Same thing, the mysteries of the world. But the alien thing, I was always like, it makes the most sense to me.
Yes.
And then now, how much of it is Lockheed Martin and how much of it is,
That's the question I have, right? That's where I'm wondering, how is this, who's responsible for the tech? Where is the tech coming from? Is it just a way to give more money to, Raytheon or Lockheed Martin? It's kind of, But I do think the alien tech situation, UFOs, I think this would be a great third installment for Hammer of the Dogs. Where she fights aliens.
That's the next phase.
Interdimensional.
It could go two ways, good or bad.
So that's why I'm intrigued by it, because I have literary reasons for being fascinated by it. I don't really absorb that content and think I have philosophical discussions in my mind about what it means, or the origin of humanity, or chariots of the gods, or anything like that. I'm just for me, it's about how can I use this to write a compelling narrative or novel. And I think that a lot of people feel the same way. I think Hollywood really needs to catch up with some of these ideas that have been out in the underground, whatever you want to call it, for many years, because we're Stargate's about the only thing out there that comes close to exploring those ideas.
And then I've noticed it on Reddit coming up again, and which was, I thought, one of the better sci-fi movies was The Last Starfighter.
Yes.
With the whole playing video games, and we've come because you're so, I always thought that was a great concept for a script.
That was a huge movie for me in the 80s, seeing that in the theater with my mom, and great memory and a great inspiration. I mean, there's lots of The Last Starfighter in Hammer of the Dogs, and it's that movie's come back a little bit. It got rewritten to a degree by the author that did Ready Player One. Which was made into a Spielberg movie, I believe. So Last Starfighter's made it a bit of a comeback, but it was sort of a deep cut for many years in the 90s, 2000s. But underrated still, sci-fi classic.
And then Alien Nation was another one that I thought was great, because then you have the intermingling, and you got the racism and all the stuff that people have, hatred and love affair and all that.
And they made they had novelizations, or I guess tie-in novels for that show that you'll find every now and then in a used bookstore that are a lot of fun to read. Alien Nation, great show on TV. There was a great movie with Louis Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid called Enemy Mine.
Oh yeah,
if you remember that one.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to watch it. It's kind of hard to find. It's not really easy to find on streaming. Underrated film.
One of the back in the early mid 90s, I used to go to UFO government conspiracy meetings. Like punk rock got me to government conspiracies. And my growing up Native American, that was a whole big aspect of fight against the system. And V, the TV show,
Wow.
it ended, and there was people there like, it ended and they can't bring it back out because the reptoids won't allow you. Like, they were convinced that it was being censored because it told too much. And which I ended up loving that story more than the V story because it's just those who believed, and aliens are like a religion for a lot of people too. They're totally convinced and whatever conspiracy is happening. But that was another one that was an interesting take on the whole.
Well, V hit me when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it flattened me. I loved it. It was scary.
Yeah, it was very scary back then.
Watching it today, I'm like, why was I ever scared of this? This is goofy.
Yeah, but as a kid, I mean, heck yeah.
It really rattled me, and it's so great to grow up in that era of TV, and even the disturbing movies that you and I grew up watching, like The Day After. Or Threads, or the nuclear war doom stories. Those were wild, and I guess Red Dawn is sort of a Cold War nightmare.
That one and Taps.
Yes,
those two. Like, I cried and I freaked out. Like, they were like really emotional as a young kid. I think I was 8 or 10, somewhere around there, seeing those. And
I think about that today. Like my sons, growing up and watching pop culture, they never were hit with anything nearly as hard as all that. They grew up watching, like, I don't know, what's that stuff? Gru, or what's that?
Oh, the Marvel Comics stuff.
No, what's that thing with the little yellow people? They got the one eye or whatever. Minions.
Minions.
They grew up watching like Minions until they were like 12 or 13. I was watching Dawn of the Dead like when I was 9. I was watching Conan when I'm 8.
Oh yeah.
Watching The Road Warrior when I'm 11. Pop culture has gotten very very soft, flabby,
and repetitive and boring,
and it's kind of nice. Like, my kids didn't have to like have their minds scarred or traumatized by Dawn of the Dead. But then at the same time, I'm like, maybe they should have watched some crazy films, because they might have. I just feel like everything's designed to coddle people, and the stuff that is disturbing is like kind of bores me, like like the Game of Thrones series, and everybody loved it, but to me it was like really too weird and too like it didn't have any brightness. It was like long episodes of torture. And that kind of was a turn off to me. I'm not big into torture.
No, same. Or gore. I'm not a big slasher. I never got into horror heavy.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween is great because there's not really any gore, but it's still a slasher film and it scares the
monster movies. You gotta love those.
So I think that things are just they're just not like they were, and that's fine. They're different, but I think some of these, Hollywood people need to go back, take a step. Maybe they'll do it now when they're in the strike. They'll take a breath and go back and see what really worked and why those movies endure as they do.
From what I've noticed too, especially when you got series happening or more than one, series. I think of like Netflix series. Oh yeah. But you get one group of writers. And then next one they can switch it up, or halfway through they'll get new. And so it starts with a soul, and then it just comes out like Captain Crunch. You know? And that's a bummer.
Yeah, Captain Crunch it's funny. I always was predicting that Tim Burton and Johnny Depp would team up on a Captain Crunch adaptation. We were almost there. It's like they've done everything. Yeah, they've remade everything else. It's time to hit the breakfast cereals.
Yeah, they pushed drugs on us hard when we were a kid. It just happened to be. All of our cartoon characters were somehow drug dealers.
Isn't that weird? Very troubling. Yeah. But I really think that the UFO stuff and today's pop culture. I mean, I really think today's writers and screenwriters and entertainers, we need to go and focus on some of that and bring that kind of classic sci-fi fantasy sensibility to bear on what they're making, because I was talking to someone the other day about Heavy Metal magazine and how that was so influential
Yeah.
and warped so many minds, and you could see its influence. And then there's people today writing in Hollywood who don't know what heavy metal is. But you have to go back and study and assess and figure out what works.
Well, and I think that's what's great about what you're doing with teaching graphic novels, and because it's a great avenue for young, underfinanced people to create those stories and get them out there. Movie. I mean, of course, there's different levels of movies. People can make movies now on their phones, so But I just love the creativity that you can have with the graphic novel.
Yes, in this class I teach, the students design their own comics at the end. So
nice.
They write and draw and produce their own comic. It's a mini comic. It's 8 pages or whatever, but it's something. Cool. They need to know what it's like to put pen to paper or digital pen to pad. They need to get involved in the process.
It's funny. I've been working on a comic book series with Nobody Panics. We did one of his graphic novels, and and it's I'm such a screenwriter guy that I'm like, I set stuff up, and it's great to work with him because he's like, well, let's, instead of saying this, let's like show it in this way. And graphic novels can speak volumes without having dialogue.
Yes,
which is something I had forgotten. And he, being a young artist writer himself, really brought that to light. And I've been enjoying working with him because it's such a great way to create and get your point across and tell a story that it's not so planned out, scripted, if you will.
Yes.
As other stories are with movies and everything like that. So
I do feel that when it comes to comics production, being a writer is almost like you're trying to stay out of the way of the artist. Like, you don't want to trip up the artist, but you want to give them something that they can really sink their teeth into without like bossing them around. And so it's really tricky. So I have a lot of sympathy, I should say, for the whole what they call the Marvel method of comics production, which is you give the artist a loose outline or a general idea of what's going to happen in the issue, and the artist just goes to town, and then you come in as the writer and just kind of add the speech balloons and the narrative captions and everything else, because it feels tricky. Like, I've written and published a few short comics pieces, and they're almost harder to write than like you
got to keep it tight.
That kind of paring down and always keeping the camera in mind is almost it'll drive you mad almost. I found it intriguing. It kind of is like, all right, a new way to practice, a new way to start seeing my writing. It's I give props to those who can do it on a regular. And that moment where like you see your dialogue is crowding the art in that panel, and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Like, I should have pared that down a bit more. Should have sculpted that.
Exactly.
And, that's a big teaching or learning moment, so that's what I'm having my students think about when they make these mini comics in the classroom. They're thinking about a new way of writing, a new way of presenting stories, a new way of communicating.
That's it's a new way for sure, and it can be nerve-wracking, or at the same time it can be when you can take a paragraph and hone it down to a sentence and get everything you wanted in that paragraph in that sentence. It's like, that's gold, that makes you feel pretty good. Getting to that point pisses you off,
It's been my most frustrating experience, like writing comic scripts. But it's so worth it because, like I said, it makes you reevaluate everything. And that's what I want students to do, is to reevaluate. I don't want to make them, cry and, I can't do this. It's not that. I try to guide them through it and let them know, this is all part of the process. But you got to be able to trust the artist. And I should say that my students in the graphic novel class are using AI-generated art to create some of their comics. And that's really helpful for those of us who can't draw too well.
And I told one of my writers, he said he wanted to do some graphic novel stuff, but he's having a hard time finding someone who will follow through. I brought up Fiverr, and he said he's tried Fiverr, can't get it to work the way he wants. He's paid some artists a little bit, but they can never follow through. and he doesn't have enough money to bring somebody on. And I said, well, at that point, maybe AI is the route you want to go. Just don't say, I want it to look like Jack Kirby.
Right.
Know?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem, because it's essentially a plagiarism machine.
Yeah.
And if I have my students use AI-generated art, to what degree can they, it brings up like these thorny issues.
Yeah.
Like, do they claim credit for it, or can they, so for me, it's like, just produce the script, let me see the words, and, the visuals we can work around. You don't have to be an artist to get an A in an English class dedicated to comics, But I would never encourage them to, like, publish, the 8-page mini comic using AI-generated art. That's a whole different, that's a big can of worms.
Yeah, I told one of our writers, I said, it's going to happen. It's not going anywhere. We just don't want it to be the first to start publishing it. I mean, we got one of our artists who's suing AI company right now.
Oh, wow.
Kelly McCurtain. We carry a bunch of her stuff. And, I'm like, when it happens, it happens. But right now, we're too small. We can't sue anybody, so we don't want to fight that fight.
But again, I think there's like a whole military intention behind this, just to keep artists from, making a living wage and try to keep them down, keep them under control. Yeah. I really see as that. I see that as part of the AI conspiracy, if you will.
Yeah, robots were supposed to be making our lives easier, not doing the movies and the books and the
that was never the idea.
Yeah.
And, that's not even an idea that you see in the Terminator. This idea of stealing creative jobs. I mean, that was like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
How does that?
But you can see a military wanting to use it, so it just keeps you sedated, exactly,
pacified.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Lash is fighting against, that pacification, that controlling force that's always, has its hand on top of Las Vegas. And then she finds out, the people she finds out who the real puppet masters are, and that's a real blow.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's, AI, the term AI only pops up a few times in the book, but that's really what, she's fighting against, the algorithms, the mighty.
Yeah, who's telling you what?
Computational forces of, the hostile entity that's out there. And I find that to be scary, but also super fun to think about.
Yeah. Scary for those in the future.
For real. But there's a way out of it. We just have to have the
it's the problem of there's a way to feed everyone on the planet too, but we don't seem to want to do that. So
exactly.
Are we going to keep the robots from taking people out? I don't think so.
Yeah, let's get those robots feeding some people or housing some people.
Your other evil character is a great example of that. Could be doing good, and then. Nah, there's money out there. Let's just get that money. It's like that.
We need the money to give to the needy,
so that we can do good. Which is straight out of every time in history. Yeah, there's those people.
The rationalization. I need more money so I can help more people. But it's strange. But I do think that a book like Hammer of the Dogs is really, hopeful and has a bright message despite all the, the terror and cruelty that the character sees and experiences. There is the opportunity at the end to just hit restart, redo. Do-over.
Yeah.
Let's make something.
That
real.
was an exciting aspect of it all, which I did not see coming at all. I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, that's right. It was a good twist. I mean, it was solid. So, Hammer of the Dogs. When does it get released here?
September 12th.
All right. Do we have a book signing on the date here with this?
Yes.
Okay.
But now I forgot.
I don't know. It's on our calendar. Sugar.
It's a few days after that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and make sure and bring my students out.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And I'm looking forward to signing some copies of Hammer of the Dogs in my favorite bookstore in Las Vegas.
We appreciate that. That's at Avantpop Books.
Yes.
November 30th? September 30th. We'll be doing
September 30th.
Yeah, we'll be doing your book signing here at Avantpop.
That's excellent. That's great.
Yeah.
I will say that I won't have any drones with me,
Okay.
so it'll be a safe,
no demos,
safe and
no
secure.
drones or flamingos. Yeah, well, we're safe from those.
No, they're not just flamingos. They're mutant.
Yeah, I didn't want to give too much away.
Carnivorous, flesh-eating, flying flamingos.
Yeah, that was a gory scene in the book for sure.
Well, I'll tell you where that came from. You ever seen the '80s movie Sheena, starring Tanya Roberts? At the end, she telepathically summons at the end of the film, she telepathically summons a squadron of pink flamingos to attack an airplane or something, at the end. And I was like, that always stuck with me as a child. I was like, I just think it'd be so cool to have like flamingos attacking, like a casino or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, there was the casino, the Flamingo we had, here.
Right. Yeah. Well, it works with Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but then I was also remembering Thomas Harris's novel. I think it's called Hannibal, the one with the flesh-eating pigs.
Yeah.
So I kind of put those two elements together for this, culminating final
great attack
battle.
dogs.
I thought there would be. This is an unforgettable moment. We have to do this.
Yeah, definitely.
And then using drones to fight the.
Yeah, it was a good scene. It was a good scene, man. And I like I said, I was seeing the movie in my head. I was like, just boom, it's widescreen.
Yeah. Although I think if an ideal director would be like Harmony Korine or somebody who doesn't really do action movies.
Yeah.
I liked it to be a little bit weird, a little bit off.
Yeah.
So I
can
think
see that.
somebody like that would be great. And you know, for me, I would love to write the screenplay adaptation, but it would almost be more fun to watch somebody work with it.
Right. Well, why don't you write the screenplay and just have it ready?
Yeah, that's what I should do, right?
Yeah, heck yeah. And then you can have it up on your website if nobody buys it. That's what I was going to start doing with my old scripts. I'm like, I'm just going to put them on the website.
Do you want to buy this?
Yeah, exactly. Free to read, but if you want to buy it.
Yeah, you put your little watermark on it. That's a good idea. No, I do want to, but I will say this is going to sound anti-technology and like a downer. I wouldn't want this to be like a streaming series. Like, to me, this would have to be like something you could,
a good 80s movie.
Yeah, it'd have to be only at art house theaters.
Yeah.
Maybe just, you can only see this at Alamo Draft House or something like that. Or at, like the Beverly or, one week only.
Yeah.
And then just like make it disappear.
I don't know, man. I'm seeing a blockbuster here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one that just, you got whoever young female in the next, 5 years that is the up and coming.
Yes.
Like it's got a lot of good characters in there. Dio, I love Dio.
Yeah.
That cactus eating motherfucker.
Yes. Yeah, he's fun. Bathory is fun as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that Richter would be that kind of vampire rockabilly punk.
I just saw Johnny Depp.
Yeah. In the 80s.
Yeah,
exactly. But it'd be fun to cast. I should probably do that on social media. Like,
hell yeah,
heck yeah. Do some casting.
Set the stage.
Quizzes.
Set the stage.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna do everything I can to spread the word about this book. And
are you doing a tour?
I am. I'm doing some dates in Florida, Utah, and Colorado. So.
Nice.
That'll be fun.
Nice. Get us a little flyer we can share on social media. Let everybody know where you're at.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm gonna. I'm going to some indie bookstores. I think I am going to do a couple of Barnes and Noble dates and like in Vegas later on.
Yeah.
At the end of the because those. I don't know much about those. About book signings today. Like, I remember book signings from when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. That's why I love Avantpop, because I come in here and it just takes me back to that great moment where you meet an author, and the book is always interesting, whatever's here. It's not like some generic thing.
Yeah.
There's always like a twist or something cool about whatever the author of the book is presenting. And so I just, that's what I miss, is that human touch. I feel like we kind of lost that in recent years. So it's good to see it here. and see just a wide variety of authors and books.
Yeah, we definitely try. But I think your book's great for mass market. I mean, I think it's going to resonate with just everybody. I mean, you don't have to be a sci-fi fan. You don't have to, be any sort of genre. It's just a good book that I think, from YA to, us 40, 50-year-olds that, will take it.
Yeah, I was trying to write a YA book for people that maybe don't read YA that much, and wanted to write something for them. Like, hey, this is what's possible.
Yeah.
What you can do with, that kind of, subcategory genre or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time, like if you go online, like the YA categories genre, it's just growing.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be slowing down. So.
Yeah, no, it's a big market right now for sure.
And I don't read much of it. I've just read Battle Royale and the good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do, pay homage to and pay tribute to. And I think this is the kind of book that if it does well, we can write one or two more to get the trilogy in place.
What I know it's jumping the gun, but what's some other genres you'd like to work in outside of Western?
Yeah. Well, I told you, I got some Westerns in the works. I don't know, I would really like to write an old school psycho pulp crime noir,
all right,
novel. I think I have some ideas for something that could be fun.
Nice.
And but then there's also that part of me that wants to do straight up fantasy, like with unicorns,
right?
Dragons. So I don't know. I mean, I think I'll just wait to see how this book does. Meantime, write a few westerns. And see where that takes me.
Yeah.
I love teaching my classes. And,
I can imagine that's a fun thing.
And it's hard to get bored in Las Vegas.
This is true. It's a town that will exhaust you.
Yes. Yes.
Jarret, I mean, all right, let's sneak you out of here. I don't know how long we've been going. A little over an hour.
Oh, good.
So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just take out the boring parts. Like
I don't think it is. I think we nailed it. Jarret Keene, everybody. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Avantpop Books.
I'd like to thank Jarret Keene for joining us on this episode of Avantpop Bookstore Presents. His latest novel, Hammer of the Dogs, the dystopian adventure set in Las Vegas, is available at avantpopbooks.com, or you can pick it up at Avantpop Bookstore in Las Vegas. The theme music for Avantpop Bookstore Presents is performed by artist Dillashoe. And I hope you can join us again for another edition of Avantpop Bookstore Presents.